It's just after 3 a.m. in Atlanta, and hundreds of people are asleep inside a hotel they believe is fireproof. There are no sprinklers, no fire escapes, and no warning loud enough to save them. Within minutes, smoke fills the stairwells, the upper floors become a trap, and desperate guests are forced to the windows with nowhere left to go. This is the story of the deadliest hotel fire in U.S. history, and the terrifying lesson it taught the world about fire, panic, and survival. Atlanta, Georgia. December 7th, 1946. The war had ended just over a year earlier. America was rebuilding, traveling, celebrating life again. Cities were alive with optimism, and hotels like the Winecoff stood as symbols of progress, modern, elegant, and most importantly, safe. The Winecoff Hotel was advertised as absolutely fireproof. It was built of steel and brick, no wood framing, no obvious vulnerability. To the average guest, that meant one thing: nothing could burn here. But that belief, that illusion, would become one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in the history of fire. Because buildings don't need to burn to kill people. Smoke, heat, and human behavior are often far deadlier. And on this night, nearly 300 people would place their trust in a building that could not protect them. This, a documentary of the Winecoff Hotel fire. I am retired Fire Chief Stephen Gentile, and this is the burning oath. Inside the hotel, life continues as it always had. Travelers check in late after long journeys. Young couples talk quietly in their rooms. Families settle in for the night. Some are attending a YMCA youth conference. Others are passing through Atlanta for business or holiday travel. There is laughter, conversation, the quiet rhythm of a building filled with life. No alarms sound, no warnings are given. Because at this moment, everything feels normal. And that's the most dangerous moment of all, when nothing feels wrong. Somewhere inside the building, likely on the 3rd floor, a small fire begins. At first, it is insignificant. A spark, a flame, something easily ignored. There is no explosion, no dramatic moment, just heat building. Slowly, this is how most deadly fires begin, not with chaos, but with quiet. And in a building without detection systems, that quiet becomes deadly. It rises quickly, hugging ceilings, moving silently through hallways and stairwells. Smoke is deceptive. It doesn't look dangerous at first, but within it are toxic gases, carbon monoxide, cyanide, capable of incapacitating a person in seconds. As the smoke thickens, visibility drops, air becomes poison. And still, most people are asleep, unaware that the real threat has already arrived. Then, someone wakes up. A cough, a burning sensation in the throat, confusion. They sit up, disoriented, trying to understand what's happening. The air is wrong, thick, heavy, unnatural. They move toward the door and open it. What they see changes everything. A wall of black smoke. The hallway, the only path to escape, is already gone. Hallways are designed to guide people to safety. But in the Winecoff, they became something else entirely. A trap. Smoke fills the corridor from floor to ceiling. There is no visibility, no direction, no air. Guests step out of their rooms expecting to escape, only to find themselves completely disoriented. Some try to run, others retreat back into their rooms, and every second, conditions get worse. What makes this fire especially deadly is something invisible: the structure of the building itself. The stairwells and elevator shafts act like chimneys, pulling heat, flames, and smoke upward with incredible force. This is known as the stack effect. Hot air rises rapidly, accelerating the spread of fire vertically. In minutes, the fire is no longer confined to one floor. It's climbing, faster than anyone inside can react. The people on the upper floors believed they were safest, far from the source of the fire, but in vertical fires, the opposite is often true. Smoke and heat rise. And now, the highest floors begin filling with toxic air. Guests wake to confusion, then fear, then realization. They are above the fire, but the fire is coming to them. At this point, the reality becomes unavoidable. There are no fire escapes, no exterior ladders, no secondary exits. The building's design offers no alternative. Inside, hallways are impassable, stairwells are filled with smoke, and outside, the ground is 15 stories below. For many inside the Winecoff Hotel, the choice becomes unbearable. Stay and suffocate, or jump and face the fall. Outside, the first fire crews arrive within minutes. Sirens cut through the early morning silence. Firefighters rush toward the building, expecting a standard fire. But what they see stops them cold. Flames are already visible on multiple floors. People are at the windows, calling for help. And immediately, one problem becomes clear. Their ladders don't reach. The scale of the disaster is beyond what they can handle, and time is running out. Within moments of arriving, the fire crews understand something horrifying. This is not a room and contents fire. This is not a small hotel incident that can be contained with speed and discipline. This is a vertical mass casualty event. The building is already acting like a chimney. Smoke is driving upward through the interior shafts. Flames are moving floor to floor faster than the firefighters can position lines. Guests are trapped above the fire, and many of them are not trapped by flames at all, but by the invisible killer filling the building from the inside out. The men on the ground can hear voices from above, screams, calls for help, the sharp, desperate sounds of people who know they are running out of time. And then the terrible math sets in. The ladders available cannot reach the top floors. The rescue equipment of 1946 was not designed for a 15-story nightmare unfolding this quickly. For the firefighters below, this becomes one of the cruelest situations imaginable. To be present, to be willing, to be trying, and still not be able to reach the people who need you. One of the most devastating truths about the Winecoff fire is that the building itself helped create the disaster. The structure may have been marketed as fireproof because its frame would not ignite easily, but that phrase hid a deadly misunderstanding. A building can have non-combustible structural elements and still become a perfect machine for mass death. The corridors concentrated smoke. The stairways funneled heat upward. The enclosed vertical spaces accelerated the spread. And the absence of sprinklers meant the fire had precious uninterrupted minutes to grow. This is one of the great lessons of fire history. People often think of fire as something that kills only by burning. But deadly fires rarely work that way. They kill by disorientation, by heat, by toxic gases, by removing visibility, by forcing impossible decisions in seconds. In the Winecoff, the architecture did not merely fail to save people. It actively shaped the way they died. For many guests, the most terrifying part of the fire was not how it started, but how they discovered it. They did not wake to sirens. They did not hear a modern alarm. There was no loud, organized system telling them what to do. Instead, they woke into confusion. A cough, a strange smell, a pounding on a distant door, a muffled shout somewhere down the hall. The human mind is slow to accept catastrophe when it interrupts an ordinary moment. At first, many people likely did what all people do in emergencies. They searched for normal explanations. Maybe someone is smoking. Maybe something burned in the kitchen. Maybe it's not serious. That delay, the few seconds or minutes spent trying to understand rather than immediately act, can become fatal in a smoke-filled building. By the time many guests understood the truth, the fire had already taken the hallways. They were not waking up to a fire. They were waking up inside a trap that had already closed. In disasters, people rarely behave the way movies imagine. Some act immediately. Some freeze. Some deny what is happening. Some spend precious seconds gathering belongings, dressing, or searching for loved ones. Human behavior in fire is deeply psychological. People want information before action. They want certainty before committing to escape. They want to believe there is still time. This is not weakness. It is normal human cognition under sudden stress. The brain resists the unacceptable. Inside the Winecoff, those few moments of hesitation may have been the difference between reaching an exit and never making it out at all. Panic is not always screaming and chaos. Sometimes panic is quieter. Sometimes it is the inability to decide, the inability to move, the mind collapsing under too many possible choices, all of them terrifying. And in a fire, hesitation is a kind of gravity. It pulls people toward disaster. For those who did try to escape, the stairwells seemed like the obvious path. But in fires like this, stairwells become battlegrounds between instinct and reality. People move toward them because that is what buildings teach us to do. Down is safety, stairs are escape. But when smoke has already entered the vertical shafts, those same stairwells can become fatal funnels. Guests encountered searing heat, thick smoke, and collapsing visibility. Some likely began descending only to find themselves forced back by conditions that had become unbearable. Now the geometry of the building begins to control human behavior. The natural path out has been taken away. People are forced to reverse direction, to retreat upward or back into their rooms, which feels wrong, irrational, even insane. But in that moment, survival is no longer about following the normal path. It is about finding air. Eventually, many guests reach the same terrible conclusion. The hallways are impassable, the stairs are deadly, the room is filling with smoke. That leaves only one place to go, the windows. From the street below, witnesses begin seeing figures appear in the upper openings of the hotel. Men and women lean into the night air, trying to breathe, trying to signal for help, trying to understand whether rescue is possible. This is one of the most haunting images in the history of fire. A line of human silhouettes in lighted windows, suspended between fire behind them and open air in front of them. The window, which in ordinary life means view, comfort, distance, suddenly becomes a border between two forms of death. Behind it, suffocation, heat, fire. Beyond it, a fall almost no one could survive. And still, people gather there because the instinct to seek air is stronger than the fear of height. The people on the street that night never forgot what they saw. A towering hotel burning from within, flames flickering in lower windows, smoke boiling upward, and human beings trapped high above the ground, visible in the openings like figures in a nightmare. Crowds gathered quickly, police, civilians, responders, passers-by. They watched as firefighters worked furiously below, raising ladders, stretching lines, attempting rescues. But the higher floors remained out of reach. This helpless witnessing is part of what made the Winecoff fire so psychologically devastating. People were not dying hidden behind walls or deep inside the structure. They were visible, seen, watched by the city as they faced impossible decisions in real time. The tragedy unfolded not in secret, but in public view, which made every second feel more unbearable. Then the unthinkable began. One by one, some of the trapped occupants made the only choice they believed remained. They jumped. No documentary about the Winecoff fire can avoid this moment, because this is the moment the event seared itself into American memory. These were not reckless acts. They were acts of desperation at the edge of human endurance. People do not leap from great heights because they want to die. They leap because the environment behind them has become more terrifying than the fall. This is the purest expression of fire's psychological violence. It does not only burn bodies, it corners the mind. It strips away every tolerable option until a person is forced into the unthinkable. Below, firefighters and witnesses watched in horror. Above, others remained at the windows, confronting the same impossible threshold. On the ground, firefighters continued pushing beyond the limits of their equipment. They deployed ladders, rescue nets, hose lines, anything that might buy time or create even a narrow chance of survival. Some entered the building despite the smoke conditions, attempting interior rescues in a structure already turning hostile. But this was 1946. Protective gear was limited. Breathing apparatus was primitive and not widely deployed in the way modern fire services depend on it today. Communication was slower. Aerial apparatus lacked the reach high-rise firefighters would later consider essential. In many ways, the firefighters were fighting a modern-scale disaster with pre-modern tools. And still they went in. This is the paradox of firefighting history. Even when the technology is inadequate, the obligation remains. The duty to climb, to search, to enter, to try, even when success is unlikely. By the time the fire was brought under control, the city was left to confront what had happened. Morning light revealed a hotel blackened by smoke and heat, broken windows, burned interiors, faces of firefighters exhausted beyond words. And then the count began. The number would rise to 119 dead. It remains the deadliest hotel fire in United States history. But numbers by themselves cannot capture what the Winecoff meant. This was not only a fire, it was a public shattering of assumptions. The belief that fireproof meant safe. The belief that tall buildings were survivable without modern protections. The belief that architecture alone could replace preparation. By sunrise, the flames were largely gone, but something else had begun, a reckoning. The Winecoff fire did more than kill 119 people. It exposed a national illusion. For decades, Americans had trusted terms like fireproof, assuming that steel, brick, and masonry meant protection. But the Winecoff revealed a truth that would reshape fire safety forever. A building can survive a fire structurally and still become a machine for mass death. The frame may stand, the walls may remain, the roof may not collapse. But if people inside cannot detect the fire, cannot suppress it, and cannot escape it, then the building has failed in the most important way possible. This tragedy forced architects, engineers, fire officials, and lawmakers to rethink what safety actually means. Not just strong construction, not just resistance to flame, but survivability. Could people get out in time? Could smoke be controlled? Could the fire be stopped before it spread vertically? Could a building protect human life, not just its own frame? These questions would become central to modern fire protection engineering. Out of the horror of Winecoff came pressure for change. Sprinkler systems, once seen by many owners as expensive or unnecessary, began to be viewed differently. Automatic fire suppression could mean the difference between a controllable incident and a mass casualty event. Alarm systems became more than an afterthought. A sleeping occupant needs warning before smoke reaches the room. In the Winecoff, many victims were not overtaken by flames first, but by time lost in confusion. Protected stairwells became more important. Fire-resistant doors mattered more. Compartmentation, the simple idea of slowing fire and smoke from moving freely through a building, became a principle with life or death consequences. And external fire escapes, though imperfect, no longer seemed like optional features in older structures. The Winecoff did not single-handedly invent modern fire codes, but it accelerated the understanding that high-rise safety must be proactive, layered, and designed around human vulnerability. Because in a fire, people do not need a building that merely stands. They need a building that helps them live. One of the deepest lessons of the Winecoff fire is not just about buildings. It is about people. Why do some act immediately in emergencies while others hesitate? Why do some survive because they move, while others lose precious seconds trying to understand what is happening? The answer lies in human psychology. Most people are not trained for catastrophe. When danger appears suddenly, the brain does not always respond with instant decisive action. Often, it searches first for meaning. It tries to normalize the threat. It looks for familiar explanations. That hesitation is not stupidity. It is human. The mind protects itself by resisting the unacceptable. But fire punishes delay. In a smoke emergency, 1 minute can change survivable conditions into fatal ones. The hesitation to open a window, the delay in leaving a room, the instinct to gather belongings, the belief that maybe it's not that bad. All of these can become deadly. The Winecoff reminds us that survival is not only physical, it is psychological. When people are trapped in fire, they do not think like spectators imagine. They think like living beings trying to breathe. That is why so many in the Winecoff moved toward the windows. Not because they had given up, not because they were irrational, but because every instinct in the human body demands air. Smoke changes everything. It steals visibility, orientation, judgment, and time. It turns hallways into blind tunnels and rooms into shrinking boxes. It makes the nearest breath feel urgent, then impossible. The window becomes hope, fresh air, visibility, a signal for help. But in a high-rise fire, that hope is mixed with terror. The same opening that offers breath also reveals the deadly drop below. The image of trapped occupants at windows endures because it captures a universal truth. When survival narrows, human beings move toward the smallest remaining source of life, even if it stands at the edge of the abyss. If the Winecoff fire happened today, the response would be very different. Modern firefighters arrive with high-rise packs, self-contained breathing apparatus, thermal imaging cameras, radios, incident command systems, aerial platforms, and coordinated rescue strategies shaped by decades of hard-earned lessons. In 1946, those tools either did not exist in practical form or were not widely available. The firefighters at Winecoff were brave. They were committed. They were doing everything they could. But courage cannot manufacture equipment in the moment, and bravery cannot extend a ladder another 5 stories. This is one of the most sobering truths in firefighting history. Heroism matters, but systems matter too. We honor firefighters not only by praising their courage, but by giving them the tools, training, staffing, and building conditions that allow courage to succeed. The men below the Winecoff did not fail. They were failed by the limitations of their era. Every disaster has 2 timelines, the one that unfolds during the event and the one that begins after it. For the families of the Winecoff victims, the fire did not end when the flames were extinguished. It continued in hospital corridors, morgues, newspaper photographs, unanswered questions, and lives permanently divided into before and after. Some families lost children, some lost spouses, some never forgot the public horror of knowing that a loved one had been trapped at a window, visible to the world and beyond reach. This is what mass tragedy does. It does not simply take lives. It rearranges the emotional architecture of everyone connected to them. Grief after fire is often mixed with rage. Rage that the danger was preventable. Rage that warnings were absent. Rage that help could not arrive in time. And in that rage, history begins to change. Many historic fires are forgotten by the public over time, but some remain. The Winecoff fire endures because it touches something primal in the human imagination, the fear of being trapped above danger, visible but unreachable, suspended between rescue and catastrophe. It also endures because it sits at the crossroads of so many truths. The truth about poor design, the truth about smoke, the truth about panic, the truth about firefighting limits, the truth about how one building can reveal an entire society's blind spots. For firefighters, Winecoff is not just history, it is instruction. For building officials, it is warning. For the public, it is a reminder that safety codes are often written in the aftermath of unbearable loss. And for a channel like the Burning Oath, it is something else too. A story about what fire reveals, not only about buildings, but about human beings. At its core, the Winecoff fire teaches a lesson that extends far beyond 1946. Disasters are rarely the result of one failure. They are usually the convergence of many. A missing sprinkler system, a building design flaw, no alarm, no fire escape, no time, no air, no plan for what happens when ordinary life is interrupted by extraordinary danger. That is the deeper lesson. Catastrophe is often built slowly, invisibly in the decisions made long before the emergency begins, and survival is often shaped long before the fire ever starts. In the codes we adopt, in the warnings we install, in the exits we build, in the training we repeat, in the respect we give to risks people would rather ignore. Fire is not only an event, it is a test of preparation. The Winecoff Hotel fire was one of the deadliest building fires in American history. But to leave the story, there would be to miss what makes it endure. This was not simply a story of flames, it was a story of air, of delay, of fear, of architecture, of courage, of impossible choices made in impossible conditions. It was a story of firefighters reaching upward with ladders that fell short, of trapped guests standing at windows between smoke and sky, of a nation forced to confront the deadly cost of believing a building was safe because someone said it was. And maybe that is why we still study fires like this, because they remind us that danger is not always loud at first, that false confidence can be fatal, that preparation is an act of respect for human life, and that when the moment comes, survival depends on what was built, physically, psychologically, and morally, long before the flames ever appeared. Fire has a brutal way of exposing the truth. It reveals whether a building was truly safe or only believed to be. It reveals whether systems were designed to protect life or merely satisfy appearance. It reveals how people think under pressure, how fear shapes decisions, and how quickly normal life can collapse into irreversible tragedy. The Winecoff Hotel fire was a night of terror, grief, and helplessness. But it was also a turning point, because from its ashes came a clearer understanding of what safety must mean. Not promises, not appearances, not words like fireproof, but real protection, real warning, real escape, real preparation. And maybe that is the oath hidden inside every fire story worth remembering. That the dead are not honored by memory alone. They are honored when we learn, when we change, when we refuse to let the same failures burn their way into the future. Thank you for watching. This is The Burning Oath. If you enjoyed this look back, please like and subscribe to the channel for more lessons from the past.